Well, hello, everyone. Today's training session is time management for busy business owners. And what we're really talking about here is your personal relationship with time. Do you ever feel like a hamster on a wheel? Or perhaps you have too many balls in the air? Or you're running around like a headless chicken? Sorry, that one's a bit gruesome. Or maybe it feels like you're constantly putting out fires. Maybe it feels like you're playing the arcade game Whack-A-Mole, where you've just got to hit everything down that pops up. Or maybe you've got too much time on your hands, unlikely for the people on this call. And so it feels like a merry-go-round sometimes, doesn't it? And so many metaphors or euphemisms people use to describe this, the feeling of not having enough time. Well, today, let's do a little bit about that to get you off the merry-go-round. Some of you are looking at what looks like a vase, and others might see two heads in profile. Some might see both. And the point I'd like to make is time management is a bit of an illusion. What we actually manage is our priorities and how we allocate time against those priorities. So today, what I hope you will be able to take away from this session is a little bit about the strategies of managing time, but more importantly, you go away with a strategy on managing your time along with a few tactics to help implement those strategies. But before we dive in deeper to this, I just want to show you this short 4-minute video.
Your name is?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth. You have a work life?
I do.
Family life as well?
Mm-hmm.
Children?
Not yet.
Not yet. What's the nature of your work assignment?
I direct an international firm.
An international firm? Mm-hmm. So you really are interfacing with all kinds of people in the firm and outside the firm.
That's right.
You want a rich personal life and a rich family life. Do you ever feel like you get bogged down in the thick of thin things?
Yes.
Well, that might be analogous to all these little, small things that tend to fill our life. And that just little by little, they just accumulate. Now, your job, you can't go above this, is to get all those large rocks in the jar. Good luck. What's that one called?
Q2, planning, preparation.
Right. Planning, preparation, prevention, and empowerment. Mm-hmm. Okay, the next rock she's putting in there is called relationships and family. You didn't look at that third rock you put in there. That's employment, some key employment issue, and then you put major projects here. And I can't get it above there.
I haven't worked it yet.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. That's called service, community, church. Do you ever feel like this?
Yes.
How many feel like this? By moving the little things around, you might squeeze in one more of those big major things. It's almost. Wow, that is good. You know, if it doesn't fit, force it. Here's something that's called urgent and important. It's a quadrant 1 thing that is blindsiding you, that it's your biggest client, that if you don't get back to that client now, you've given up your vacation. And you have no special block of time just for yourself. I'll tell you what you can do if you want to.
What's that?
You can take a whole different approach. You have a totally fresh bowl. You can work out of a different paradigm altogether.
Well, then I'd rather put these in the bottom and then pour the little pebbles on top.
Employment.
Big opportunity.
Big opportunity.
Important and urgent. Block of time. Those young children keep looking at me. Glad my husband's not here. Now I dump these in there.
Okay? That's great.
So here's the thing. So many of us work with our time backwards. What I mean by that is we allow our calendar to get filled up with small stuff, the green pebbles. So it's built from the ground up. Whereas instead, in order to be effective, what we want to do is build our calendar from the top down. In other words, with the big rocks first. So how does that work? What do I mean by that? Well, let's unpack that a little bit. So why do we struggle with time management? Well, there are three levels of things occurring. The first thing is those technical things like tasks have no home, you've set aside the wrong amount of time, you've miscalculated the amount of time the task takes, you're the wrong person for the job, tasks are more complex than you wanted, you can't remember what you have to do, or your space is disorganized. And so these things are relatively easily to fix. Maybe there are some external realities. Maybe you have an unrealistic workload. Maybe you have a health problem that's limiting your energy. Maybe you're in transition from one role to another. Perhaps you're an interruption-rich environment. And I bet everyone would especially feel that way, especially if you're in a service-based business and you feel like you have to respond to your emails or phone calls or posts that come from your clients. Or perhaps you have a disorganized partner and that disorganization is creeping into your life. And maybe there are some psychological obstacles. Maybe you have unclear goals and priorities. You're the conquistador of chaos. You're constantly conquering new territories or areas. You have a fear of downtime. You have a fear of failure or fear of success. You have a fear of completion or fear of change, or you have a need for perfection. For example, the perfect sales presentation holds us back from doing our sales pitches, or you have a fear of losing creativity. So a lot of times this comes from from Stephen Covey's great book, First Things First, and I'd also recommend not just that book, but the other one, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So Covey says that there are really 3 generations of time management. In other words, how time management has evolved. First was the managing a task list or a to-do list and making sure everything that you needed to do was on the list. That evolved and started using personal organizers. We all walked around with something in a pocket or purse or kept a record of that we're attempting to do and how we booked our time. And the 3rd generation is this one that's organized around roles and values. And that's the one I want to unpack a little bit more today. So Covey talks about the clock of scheduling, for example, people to see, meetings to make, versus the compass of purpose and values. And you can see Portia here had this watch where one part of it's a clock and the other part of it's a compass. So our dilemma as we move through time is characterized by this actual real watch, which in one hand, we've got the clock of scheduling, stuff to do, meetings to make. And then on the other hand, we've got the compass of purpose and values. What's our North Star? Where are we aiming at? What are we looking to achieve over the longer course of time? So the clock of scheduling versus the compass of purpose and values. And so life is like this high wire act, the tightrope walker carrying the balancing beam. On the one hand, you have all these things you need to get done today or this hour or this week or this year. And on the other hand, time management is about what you want to do in life, what you want your life to be, what do you want to get over the next 5 years? What do you want to get out of your business, your career? What do you want to get out of life? So in any given day, in any given week, that's the challenge. You have a big bucket on one hand of the balancing beam, and that's the total sum of the to-dos, our tasks, and meetings we have with our teams or clients or the prospects we'd like to meet. And then on the other hand, what do I want to do in the next 5 years? And the stuff on the left hand is all important and urgent, but often the total sum of accomplishing that over time doesn't necessarily add up to anything. And that's why we have to have a view of the right-hand side of our balancing beam, where we have a longer-term view past this year, and in fact, even before I die. And one thing to think about this is if you were to write down your own eulogy, you can imagine how someone near and dear to you might write that you're a terrific person, you'd accomplished these great things, and you'd had a great family and partnership, and etc. And so that the thought today is, what do I have to do? How do I have to live? So that's when my eulogy is pronounced, that it's real and it's accurate, and that's the big dilemma, the big paradox. That's the big fight that we have every day, figuring out how to balance those two priorities. And the centerpiece of managing time is Covey's matrix. The matrix breaks down the things that we do with our day into 4 quadrants. You have important things and not important things, and you have things that are urgent and not urgent. And the combination of those 2 criteria make up these 4 quadrants. We manage the urgent and important, where they're actually working on truly important things in the business that are urgently pressing on them to get done, all that stuff that happens to us every day. These are crises, pressing problems with employees, clients, or orders and projects that need to get done, firefighting, putting out fires and taking care of emergencies, major scrap and rework on things that need to be done and out yesterday, and deadline-driven projects. And most business owners spend most of their time taking care of these things, urgent and important for the health of the business. And then we focus on the important and not urgent. We need to schedule time for these important activities. This is the big stuff that's important to the business, but it's not necessarily urgent. In other words, no one is holding a gun to the business owner's head, making them do the things that basically amount to preventative maintenance in some cases, things like budgeting and forecasting, like investing in important relationships so that you have the strength when the relationship comes under pressure, like marketing and sales, like new account development, like educating him or herself as a business owner. These are all the things that prevent fires down the road that become urgent. And when you don't spend enough time on prevention and proactive things to grow the business, manage it and take care of your business, you'll end up with more crisis and firefighting. So that's the goal here, is to help you understand that time is a valuable asset. And if you can discipline yourself to spend more and more time in quadrant 2, it will actually minimize the time you're focused to spend in quadrant 1. And that's the side of our lives that says, if you don't know where you're going, that any road will do. If you don't have an outcome or a picture of what your perfect life would be, it's the quadrant that would be worked that out. So preparation and planning, prevention, values, and things like that. Abraham Lincoln was quoted as saying, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Or Albert Einstein, if I had to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. So here's the interesting thing about the way it works. Then this is the critical point you as a business owner to understand, is that the more time you spend in quadrant 2, the less time you spend in quadrant 1. I'll say that again. The more time you spend in quadrant 2, the less time you spend in quadrant 1. The better we get on the right-hand side, the better it's easy to manage the left-hand side. And then we avoid or delegate the urgent and not important. These things are not important but seem urgent, usually because they are other people's priorities. And so these include interruptions when somebody with a strong personality comes in and interrupts, certain phone calls that come at you like they're urgent but are not really that important in the scheme of things, some mails, some reports, some meetings you have to attend. And I'm going to do some social media marketing, and then we go down this rabbit hole of Facebook, where we start off with the idea of what we're doing, the marketing, some marketing, and pretty soon you're wondering about somebody's new baby or what they did on holiday last week, and end up a long way from the original intention of doing some marketing. And a lot of business owners will spend time doing these things that seem urgent but not really important. And we limit or delegate and the not urgent or not important. Again, a lot of business owners waste time doing trivial things, busy work, mindless TV, time on social media, avoidance activities, some phone calls and emails. So here's something Tom Peters suggests. Have you in the last 30 days examined in detail, hour by hour, your calendar to evaluate the degree time actually spent mirrors your espoused priorities, and repeated this exercise with everyone in your team? So let me give you a way to do that. Do an audit of how you're using your time for a week. Keep track at as fine a chunk as you can. Solicitors and lawyers say they keep track of their time to the 10th of an hour. So that means every 6 minutes they can tell you what they've been doing or who they've been charging for that time. If that's a bit onerous, for you, I'm thinking 15 or even 30-minute chunks. You can put in much detail as you can, what you're doing for 30 minutes for the full course of the week. Take an audit, take that survey on how you're currently spending your time. And I promise you, I've asked clients to do this, and many times when we look back and reflect on what or how they're spending their time, it's not pretty. It's been embarrassing. It's been embarrassing for me. It's been a bit of embarrassing for the client. I've walked through with this, and it's been enlightening as well. It's really helped to highlight when they're most productive. In fact, we could be a lot more productive. So once you've made a record of how you spent your time over the week, I suggest you do this following this thing called the Value Fund Matrix. And this is a useful tool that helps you classify tasks based on how much value they have and how much fun they have. Now, the Value Fund Matrix is predicated on the notion that a business owner is making the best contribution to their business when they're adding as much value as possible and having the most fun doing it. So let's explore the framework a bit more deeply. The value of a task is purely economical in nature. So the value of a task is how much you would cost you to get tasks done on an hourly basis by hiring someone to do it. It's really not hard to know how much the value a business owner is contributing to a business when doing a certain task, because salary data is out there for a given role and readily available online. The idea of funds predicated on the notion that when any of us find doing certain tasks fun, that's our huge indicator that we're in our sweet spot, so to speak. When we're in our sweet spot, we're making exactly use of our natural wiring, so to speak. We're leveraging our strengths and making the highest and best use of time of who we are. And there's a lot of sophisticated tools out there that you can use to measure our strengths. But when we find out a task that's fun and do as simple, a good indication that we've hit our sweet spot. And when we're in our sweet spot, we're going to produce better quality work, which is good for us and our business. Now, let's just go into these quadrants in a bit more detail. Tasks in quadrant 1, those are the low value and low fun tasks. These are tasks that have the lowest score as a business owner, and you obviously want to spend as little time in this quadrant as possible. That's admin work, that's bookkeeping. Someone will do that work, a personal assistant, a virtual assistant, an organizer, lots of work that can be done by someone else. And you have lots of resources, your accountant, other people in your world that you can help you get some of that stuff done. And for every hour that you can pull out of that low value, low fun and apply that high value, high fun, you'll be getting significant increase in profitability. You'll be replacing 20-pound hours with, let's say, 200-pound hours. And that's a significant shift in the value of your business. So you'll get value in the fact because you're going away from the work you hate to do. You love employing someone to moving to something you love and employing someone to do it. And even if you're fully booked and can't take on clients, well, then you have both the time and money freedom. You're free to choose. You have all the money that you need or want, and then free your time. And if you do it in terms of enriching your lifestyle, that's perfectly fine as well. Quadrant 2, tasks are a lot of fun, but since they don't create a lot of value for the business, they should still not be in the main focus of the business owners. It's better to have fun doing higher value tasks than offload quadrant 2 tasks. For example, social media marketing is a lot of fun for people, but it's a low value. Now, quadrant 3 tasks are less fun, but full of value to the business. These tasks are important because they add value to the business, whether or not the business owner particularly enjoys doing them. And sometimes business owners just need to buckle down and get the task done. So for example, phone prospecting, for some people, this is low fun, but can be high value in converting leads to sales. It takes a lot of effort to do that. And having said that, sometimes many of these tasks can still be delegated to an apprentice, and this should be done wherever possible. And that brings us to quadrant 4, which is the best of both worlds, a lot of value and a lot of fun. And those are tasks that obviously the most ideal task for the business owner to be doing, the ones the business owner will enjoy the most and also see the most reward from doing. For example, meeting a client where we have a high hourly charge out rate. And so that's a significant value producing activity in the business. It's also something that's fun. So take your list of tasks and rank those tasks based on this quadrant. They fall into quadrant 1, all the tasks all grouped together, quadrant 2 and quadrant 3 and so forth. So here's some time management keys. The first question you have to ask yourself is, and you're thinking how you're thinking about time managers, what results matter to you most? What results matter to me most this week? What results matter to me in 5 years? What is the appropriate thing for me to be doing today so that the 5-year things become accomplishable. There's always a tension. There's always a priority competing between the two ends. Sometimes it's more on the left, sometimes it's more on the right. But the question you always want to start with is, what results matter to me most? Then falls activity. What do I have to do to produce those results? What kinds of things are going to get me a new client? What kinds of things are going to get me a relationship, a personal relationship that I'm happy with, the relationship with my friends, my family? And what are the things I have to do in order to produce those results? And then the next question, of course, is how much? How many phone calls do I have to make, or do I make? How much would I have to visit my family, my partner, my friends? How much time do I spend with them? And we then have to book in that time. But as the saying goes, the missing link in goal achievement is scheduling. The danger is many people are really good at figuring out the first three of these, but don't block out the time to get it done. Instead, they operate in the world of when I get to it. And all of us have that experience that knows that when we never get around to it because it's not in our calendar, it won't get done. And then finally, the fifth thing, maybe the hardest thing, is the integrity in the moment when it comes to that time at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, when you said you're going to eat that frog or do something that's tough for me to do, like make some calls. You have to have some integrity in the moment. And we get to either pay one or two pains all the time: the pain of discipline or the pain of disappointment. The pain of discipline is doing it in the moment, or the pain of disappointment is not getting the results that we want for ourselves this week or in 5 years or whatever time frame you're thinking about. So those are the big keys. And when you do that, you'll have a calendar that looks like this. This is a typical calendar of a business coach. Again, a default calendar, nothing more than a plan of how you're going to spend your time. So this is my calendar in the early days of starting out as a business coach. At 50% of my time at business development, with marketing, networking, and phone prospecting in the mornings, client delivery on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday afternoons, and then more business development with complimentary coaching sessions and email and admin and beginning at the end of the day, and bookkeeping and admin at the end of the week. And so the default calendar answers all those questions. What results do I want? What activity produces those results? How much of those activities? When am I going to spend? When am I going to do it? And then finally, of course, having integrity in the moment. It turns 8:30 on Monday and it says phone fun or prospecting. That's what I'm going to do. Stuff you might have been procrastinating about or just not doing, you now build into your default calendar, and that gives you the context to hold yourself accountable for getting those things done. Here's another example of a default calendar. In this case, it was for a freelance branding manager, and you can see she color-coded her work into the chunks of different style of work that she was doing, and it still answers the same kinds of questions. What's most important to the results I need to achieve? What do I need to do in order to get the result? How much time is necessary? And then how to block those times in your diaries, or how you use your calendar maps out the way you describe your priorities. Steve Jobs put it this way: people think focus means saying yes to the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means. It means saying no to the 100 other good ideas that are out there. So let me tease you a little. If you had 150 priorities, how many priorities do you have? None. That's the paradox. And here's the thing: you have to decide which four things are most important to you, and then you have to be comfortable with saying no. Everything else it's really hard to do. Most of us on the call are entrepreneurs. We're hardwired to see silver pennies everywhere. There's an illusion. Pennies are copper. They are not silver. But the silver pennies are often more exciting because they're fresh, they're innovative, they capture our imagination, and yet they're a distraction. People think focus is saying yes. It's not. Focus on what you have to say no to. So here's the thing: you equal your calendar. Calendars never lie. The results you get today are the perfect reflection of how you spend your time. If you're happy with the results you're getting, great. It means that you're using your time in the most productive way. If you're not, it's by definition means that you have to do something with how you spend your time, how you're using your time, that's not aligned to your priorities. And if you'd like some different results in one or more areas of your business or your life, then something about your calendar or something about you, how you use your time, has to change. So your calendar knows precisely what you really care about, says Tom says. And my question for you today is, does your calendar match with your stated priorities? So focus first on the compass, then on the clock. So some productivity techniques that you can take away from today. Number one, plan your day and week before you start the most productive time. I urge you to consider that the most productive time you can have in a week is 20 minutes that you spend on a Sunday night with your balance beam, organizing your week, thinking about what are the things I have to get done this week, and what are the things I can do this week to get closer to my 5-year goals, my lifelong goals, etc. To make sure to use that 20 minutes will amplify or sharpen the act, so that when you apply it through the rest of the week, you'll do it with high levels of effectiveness. The best time to plan your day is the day before. So tonight, before you finish your day, think about your day tomorrow and plan your day tomorrow. And there are a couple of reasons for this. First, this is why that works. When you start your day tomorrow, you'll land in the office or in your day with your feet on the ground, already started and running. You're not asking yourself, oh gosh, what am I supposed to get done today? You're in fact effective and productive right from the get-go. And perhaps even more interesting thing is that when you plan your day before it starts, your subconscious doesn't sleep. That's how our heart and lungs continue to operate when we're asleep. And in fact, when you program your subconscious, when you declare, here's my list of things that I want to get done tomorrow, you've told your subconscious to process that list through the night, even while you're sleeping. How many times you woke up in the middle of the night or woke up the first thing in the morning, you have a clearer picture about one or two of the problems that you were struggling with the day before. And if that's ever happened to you, and then that's happened because you had those on your mind, and when you went to sleep and in the morning your brain had offered the solution. And so you can do that in an organized way if you choose to spend 10 minutes before the end of the day to apply yourself to the next day. Second, focus. Ask yourself the question, what's the highest and best use of your time? In real estate and property, we're always asking the question, what's the best and highest use of the land? And so focus on the highest investment return uses, the most significant thing you can do. And I'm going to offer you a tool to think about that in a minute. Learn to manage and terminate your phone calls. And as an example, that if your computer or device has a notification sound, an indication of any kind that you've received a new email, that you no longer have control of your agenda. If your phone rings, makes a sound, or is vibrating, then in fact you've lost control of your phone and email. And what I mean by this is we're most effective when we chunk our time into 2-hour blocks. Chunk your time into 2 hours of activity against a particular objective, and then when we have an interruption, and it takes about 20 minutes to return to the same level of focus and productivity as we had before we took the interruption. So before we noticed the ding or the email, before we took that phone call. And so in a 2-hour chunk, if you take 3 interruptions, you lost a full hour of high-level productivity. Now, I can anticipate some of you thinking, well, geez, I have to be responsive to my clients. I have to be responsive to the people in my world. And yes, you do. And that's absolutely true. And many of us have a very demanding, interruption-rich environment. And here's what I propose and suggest you do. If you were to leave an outgoing message on your voicemail that sounded something like this: hi, it's Shane. Thanks for your call. I return all calls at 10 a.m., noon, 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. And I'll return your call at the closest to one of those 3 times. And virtually everybody will respect that. You'll set up some boundaries. People will respect those boundaries, and then in fact respect you because they understand that you're a highly effective, highly organized, highly productive person. And as long as you keep that promise, and in fact do make that return call at 10, or and as I've suggested, put 15 minutes in your calendar, then people will come to respect you more for it. So learn how to control the phone and email. Turn your phone off so it doesn't ring. Make the phone a servant of you rather than a servant of your phone constantly. Have 15 to 30 minutes in your diary to triage everything that's going on at those times, 8, 10, noon, 2 or 4, whatever. Moving on, concentrate on key tasks, stay on them until they're 100% done. So as management guru Peter Drucker says, if there's one secret to effectiveness, it's concentration. Effective executives do first things first and do one thing at a time. And then delegate all lower value tasks that can be done by someone else in a lower income or salary. Even every time you say to yourself, oh crap, I need to do that, that's a sign that that task needs delegating, because you're not going to do a very good job of it. Someone else could do it better. And often these days there's a virtual assistant that can do a lot of these tasks for you. So if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. You're probably in one of 3 places. Maybe you're at the end of this and say, hey, I'm good with that, thanks a lot, a couple of tips in there, and that's the case, awesome. I'm actually very happy you, in fact, impressed with your success. Secondly, you might be in a place where, hey, I'm pretty good with this, but I have a question or two. And if that's the case for you, then feel free to go to www.timewithshane.com. I'm happy to answer, no obligation, happy to talk to you 15 minutes and have a chat about or answer the question or how to do this or how to do that. And third, you might be in a place where you're thinking, you know what, I need some help with this because I'm struggling in this or some of the areas of my business. And that's again, go to www.timewithshane.com and book a call. Let's have a chat about what you're experiencing in the business. And if it feels like a fit, we'll go ahead and book an hour and have a longer discovery call. And if at the end of that feels like a fit, we'll talk about how we might work together. And let's go to questions.